people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this, a second look at Francesca Hennessy's upcoming fight with former champion Fabiana Baticki that tops Boxer's first BBC undercard. 7 fights and 2 years into her professional boxing career, Francesca Hennessy faces a career-best test against former world champion Fabiana Baticki in the chief support slot preceding Fraser Clark versus Jamie TKV for British heavyweight honors on October 25th. Boxer announced 4 undercard bouts that will feature on their maiden show on free-to-air television as part of their groundbreaking deal partnering up with BBC, getting underway in Derby later on this month. Hennessy, 6-0 with 1 KO, has been tipped to become a multi-weight world champion by her promoter, Ben Shalom, but also settled for a lengthy spell on the sidelines as a consequence of the uncertainty around Boxer's future, having cruised past Bournemouth veteran Gemma Rueg over 8 rounds on the Natasha Jonas versus Lauren Price undercard at the iconic Royal Albert Hall back in March. This represents a much different assignment. Ending a 7-month layoff, the 20-year-old Kent resident will fancy her chances in her first 10-round bout against the Czech Republic's Baticki, 22-2 with 2 draws and 5 KOs. Yeah, I said it in my previous video. It's one thing to go from fighting a veteran journeywoman like Gemma Rueg than going straight into a former world champion like a Fabiana Baticki, and you wonder if the matchmakers got this right. Is this the right time for Francesca to be fighting somebody like this? In strategic matchmaking, given the 29-year-old, a 2-time atomweight title holder, won those honors a whopping 5 weight divisions, 16 pounds below the 118-pound bantamweight limit where they will fight. Baticki lost a wide 10-round points decision to one-time title challenger Serene Satine in the 28-year-old's native Turkey last month, so while fresh, it'll be interesting to see how much resistance she can put up against Hennessy. The bantamweight contest will be broadcast live on BBC Two and BBC iPlayer on British shores, with the 20-year-old delighted to feature in a primetime slot on a Saturday night. If you've seen Francesca, you'll know that she's got a bubbling personality and she is very much the showman. Likely gets that gene from her father, famed promoter Mick Hennessy. You remember Mick Hennessy? He used to promote Tyson Fury, Hughie Fury. He promoted a lot of fighters in the UK. Boxing is very much a family business for the Hennessys, and Francesca, her flair for theatricality and promotion would seem to come from her father. In a press release, she said, "It's my opportunity to bring the energy and the entertainment on a night when the whole nation will be watching. Women's boxing is thriving at the moment, but I'm determined to showcase something different, especially with it being the first time in 20 years that big-time boxing is shown on the BBC. It's a new age. I want people to look back and say, this was the night the next generation arrived." She's got big ambitions, big dreams, the way you would expect any young boxer to, but the division where she campaigns really is not for the faint of heart. Even on the presupposition that she actually beats Fabiana and makes it past her, there are bigger threats at 118 pounds than just Fabiana Baticki, who really is just an atom weight who moved up in weight. How would Francesca fare against a Serene Satine? The girl that just beat Fabiana, the one from Turkey, very aggressive, very busy within a round. Take a look around. Never mind the champions and title holders at this weight. It's very obvious that Francesca is not ready for a Shernika Johnson or a Dina Thorsland. But some of the contenders, they're banana skins too. Juliana Acevedo of Costa Rica, Amanda Gaye of Canada, Johanna Wanyu of France. Dangerous fights, very dangerous fights for a Francesca Hennessy. And don't forget that this is also where Amanda Serrano's protege, her successor, Puerto Rico's own Crystal Rosado campaigns. The talent pool is quite deep at 118 pounds. I say it all the time. This ain't like junior middle, super middle, or light heavy. In the women's game, the talent pool only gets deeper the lower you go. It's much harder to win a belt at 118 pounds than it is all the way up there at middle and super middle. Francesca Hennessy is a good little fighter, shows flair and ability, mid-range to inside, getting off counters and being quick about it, angling off, beating those feet. She's a solid fighter. The problem is, so are a lot of other girls at 118. It's not that she's not good, it's that they're good too. So even beyond the Fabiana Batiki fight that she's about to have later on this month, and we'll see how she does, it doesn't get easier after that. It actually gets harder. And Francesca is so young and wide-eyed and ambitious, green around the gills. Careful that you're not too focused on the wrong thing. She's only 20 years old. Focused on the show and being the showman under the bright lights, entertaining the crowd. And that's important too. It's not like it isn't. But there's a time to worry about that, and then there's a time to develop. To get the basics down right. Remember, she only has 6 fights. Jury's still out on her. And we'll see how she makes out later on this month, on the 25th.
I want to go talk about the pay-per-view thing itself. Okay, if it's becoming obsolete, what are we moving to exactly? You know, because we saw the Turkey al-Sheikh thing. They made like they were going to get rid of pay-per-view, but then they sort of brought in pay-per-view light, which is like you're actually gonna subscribe to something else all year round for this boxing thing.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it's just pay-per-view in a different sense. Right?
Yeah, they're spread out over a whole year.
It's the same way we moved from paying for premium network channels like HBO and Showtime to paying a yearly subscription. It's a subscription model.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a pay to play per event thing anymore.
So let's call it what it is. It's we call that the same shit.
Yeah, it's spread out.
I mean, it's called.
Oh no, Paul, you got to understand. It doesn't hurt. It doesn't feel as bad. It's all about feelings. We're in 2025.
You know what? How could I?
You
know what, Chip? Great point. How could I forget about the feeling?
How could you forget about the feeling?
That was actually a really great question that Paulie Malignaggi asked. If the pay-per-view model is obsolete, what replaces it? And what are we moving towards? It's not necessarily that it's obsolete so much as overused and abused. In such a way that it was not intended. I happen to think that there will always be a space for the big box office fight, the big pay-per-view. The disconnect is that too many fighters are ending up there, and they're finding out the hard way. Pay-per-view is not for everybody, nor was it intended to be. Though if combat sports as a collective, not just boxing but also mixed martial arts, is moving away from that model, what replaces it? Well, you heard what he said. A monthly or annual subscription seems to be standing in its place, that they're gonna get into your wallet some other kind of way. Is that an adequate replacement, though? When you look at it that way, it's a way for the consumer to get more for their money. Instead of paying $80 to $90 to $100 for a single fight on a single night, maybe you pay $15 to $20 for a monthly subscription for a month's worth of boxing. Maybe you do what I do. You pay the $225 for an annual DAZN subscription for a year's worth of boxing, which is still cheaper than paying $80 at a time for a single card every month or every other month. Though pay-per-view in and of itself will never fully go away, I don't think, because there are some fights where it's justified, where it's warranted, charging that extra. With pay-per-views, the ends have to justify the means. You don't truly know if something is box office worthy until after the numbers are in. And if the numbers are good and robust, what determines if the numbers are good and robust? It's more than just breaking even, I'll tell you that. It's more than just barely getting back what you put in. There has to be a profit. There has to be an upside. And if there isn't one, then you may as well not have put it on. You can't treat the pay-per-view model like a GoFundMe account. That's what you can't do. And where I would put the ballpark figure for a good and robust pay-per-view is north of 300,000. If a fight can do 350, 4 or better at a price point of $75 to $80, then it's warranted. The real issue is that every fighter in boxing today aspires to get on pay-per-view when pay-per-view was never intended for everyone. And that's really what drove the cost of everything up. Inflated purse demands and fighters who all think they're God's gift to boxing and you have to pay them as such. What becomes of those fighters if the model is obsolete? Well, you will notice that all the network money is gone because all the networks have walked away. So without that safety net, it's a lot harder to make a buck, so you turn to pay-per-view to make up the difference, but it doesn't. So what happens? Fighters get filtered out. They get phased out in one way, shape, or form or another. The money you're looking for isn't really out there, and the only one who's offering it up is Turki El-Sheikh. But you know how it works with Turki. He'll pay you, and he'll pay you well, but it ain't gonna be for layups. It ain't gonna be for tune-up fights. He's gonna put you in a big one, and you've gotta come through it. Otherwise, you get filtered out. You get phased out. Deontay Wilder is the clearest example. Turki paid him well to fight Joseph Parker, but he lost. Then he paid him well again to fight Zhilei Zhang, but he lost again. So where is Deontay Wilder now? Last we saw him, it was in a shoebox somewhere in Wichita, Kansas, fighting a nobody. Filtered out. Phased out. No longer relevant to the sport. What becomes of the fighters if the pay-per-view model they've been relying on so heavily becomes obsolete? There are a good number of fighters that are going to be looking for money that's not out there. Those fighters might either sit on the shelf for a while or cave to a difficult and dangerous fight. But one way or another, they may end up filtered out. The ones who sit on the shelf. Guys like Jermel Charlo. Guys like Demetrius Andrade. Not getting any younger and fast becoming irrelevant to the sport. For sitting on the shelf, in some instances, for coming right off of losses they didn't rebound from. Filtered out. What could spark a market reset where fighters have to be a lot more realistic about what they get per fight, and if they want more, they have to take more risks. The natural process of elimination. La piñata agria. It's getting to a point in the boxing landscape, particularly in America, where you can't turn to pay-per-view to make any money because it's not making any money, and you may have to accept a fight that's on the more dangerous side. But that's a good thing. That's what boxing needs to go back to. In men's middleweight news, unified middleweight champion Janibek Alimkhanalai is still posting cryptic tweets about his next move, saying, "Soon, easy work." Most speculate that what he's talking about is an Arislandi Lara unification match, which I'm not against. I wonder when it's supposed to go down. We do know that Turki El-Sheikh is planning a big show early next year, so maybe this fight that he keeps hinting at will land on that show. But not only that, and what he's not being cryptic about, is a fight with Terence Crawford. Janibek said it looks like boxing fans have a new fight to get excited about, Janibek versus Crawford. Everyone's talking about it, and if it all goes well, it could happen next year. The best should face the best. That's my mindset. That might happen. Bo McIntyre recently stated that Terence has 2 or 3 fights left in him.
Trainer, do you feel like he should just sell off into the sunset after this monumental
well,
win?
You know what? They made it look so easy. You know what I'm saying? Got 2-3 more in him. You know what I'm saying? Train camp will try harder.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Do you think a move to 160 would make sense?
I mean, if you want to do it, you know, it'd be a challenge. If you want to challenge yourself, yeah, I don't mind.
Crawford, you know, within the next year and a half, you know, Crawford only fight once a year. So, yeah, by time a year, hey, Janibek might be that guy, man, at 160 pounds. And by the way, Janibek ain't no joke. Oh, no. That is a tough fight for Terence Crawford. I love me some Crawford, man. Y'all already know what time it is. But, hey, I got to call a spade a damn spade. Janibek ain't nothing to mess with. He cold. Yeah, Southpaw, you don't know much about him. That's fine. You ain't got to know much about him. But I'm here to tell you. Speed, power, size, IQ, defense, offense. Dude is cold, man. Footwork, angles, shoot, power in both hands. He a killer. That's what he is. He a damn killer, man, you know? So, I mean, look, if Crawford can go down and face that dude, bro, man, whoo, Crawford's legacy, Now, it might not be no marquee name and a name that the whole world will know, but everybody will be tuning in just to see Terrence Crawford's greatness because he's a mega star now.
Well, I wouldn't dismiss Timothy Bradley's candor so easily, as he accurately forecasted the outcome of Canelo versus Crawford, so maybe he's right when he talks about Janibek Alimkhanuly, a no-nonsense customer and a serious operator. Canelo Alvarez being so much more experienced and so much more decorated than a Janibek Alimkhanuly, what challenge would Janibek pose?
Why should anybody be concerned about him?
Well, because styles make fights, and he's not a carbon copy of Canelo, where Canelo is a short, stumpy, stocky fighter who's basically eye-level to Terrence Crawford. Janibek would be somewhat taller than Canelo Alvarez was, longer than Canelo Alvarez was, fresher, younger, and busier within a round. He also fights out of the southpaw stance as opposed to Canelo, who fights orthodox.
One of the hindrances that Canelo showed in the fight was he just wasn't busy enough. He wasn't putting punches together, and with Canelo, for a long time now, it's been only 1 or 2 punches at a time. 1 or 2 big ones and 1 or 2 accurate ones.
But that hurt him in this fight. That hurt him with Terrence Crawford, who wouldn't stand in one spot. So you're trying for your 1 or 2 punches, and they ain't getting in. Not the way they need to. So where the fight with Janibek would be different is that Janibek is a busier puncher within a round, more prolific, and because he's taller and longer than Canelo, he has more ring coverage. Longer legs make for longer strides,
and longer arms make for more ring coverage. So when he's shooting that jab, stepping into it from the outside coming in, he covers more ground than a Canelo Alvarez would. That could, theoretically, make him harder to get away from.
make him harder to work around because he can cover more ground. Now, I'm not a fan of Janibek Alimkhanuly's variety of punches. I've said it before. He's kinda robotic, trying for the same combinations over and over, and perhaps his best weapon in this fight isn't his variety, but his size and his work rate, his physicality, that he does throw a lot of punches.
He's got power.
The other X factor. The last time we saw Terrence Crawford in there with a boxer that has a Soviet kind of style was the Israel Madrimov fight. And you can argue that he actually looked better with Canelo than he did with Israel. I understand that Israel is an Uzbek, whereas Janibek is a Kazakh, though all the same, they both have an Eastern European kind of style, a Soviet kind of style. And Terrence, he did struggle with that style, didn't he?
But he struggled with Janibek.
Janibek Alimkhanuly, who seems convinced that after his next fight, he's gonna get Terrence Crawford. It is a distinct possibility. Terrence Crawford has not officially announced his retirement after all, and his longtime trainer seems to be indicating the opposite.
That he's got at least 2 to 3 more fights left in him. Though fighting once a year for the last few years, does he really have 2 to 3 fights left in him?
I would prefer to see him retire than wear out his welcome in the sport of boxing, go out on a high. I think his legacy is set in such a way that he doesn't actually need a 6th divisional title anymore. Of course he could add it to his legacy, but at this point, these are just side quests, side missions. It's not going to get bigger than beating Canelo Alvarez for undisputed. So I would actually prefer that he bow out. Though if he doesn't, you know I'm going to be watching.